The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the country. It's Mark from SolidCAM. We're going to start today's SolidCAM Live. So this is a half-hour free training session during this period of time up until May 1st. And we'll just be answering any questions you guys have. In the GoToWebinar, there is a questions panel, so you can just send us your questions. And what we'll do is we'll get to them during this period, and if not, then this is a daily thing, so we'll get to it either tomorrow or some other time during the week. I've got a set of 3 questions that we've already got preloaded. We're going to answer them, and to help me with that and to get to your questions if I don't is Kevin. Kevin's online. Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
Hey, guys. Doing good.
Perfect. Okay, so let's start with something really simple. This has come up in a individual training session that I've done with some customers, and I thought I would make a video on it, and I did that, I don't know, maybe like a year or 2. And the idea here is you have a part that is very small. In terms of cycle time, it's probably a second or less. There's no point in really just programming just one of these. So the idea is how can we group these together in one CAM part to make it worth putting this on the machine and programming this thing. So this thing is pretty much just a washer. Now this is a representative of a very basic part, but the idea here is that you have a part that you're going to do in production. Maybe you've got maybe tens of thousands of these, and rather than just doing one, maybe we can do 5 at a time, or as many as you need to, as many as you can stick this thing out of the chuck and then just keep parting it off. But the idea here is you can do an operation like this where I've collected 5 of them, and I've added this little solid in the middle to collect them together. That's because when you define them as a target, if I don't include that little connector solid, SolidCAM doesn't understand that those are separate solids being made out of a single stock. So you have to actually kind of trick it a little bit into making it think it is one stock. That way it gives you this cross section that you can work with. And then it's one of those things where you as the programmer, you realize that really this profile here is the part, and then this is a little thing here that you can just kind of gouge your part. Just trim that little bit off, and then it doesn't even exist anymore. So with that in mind, let's see what kind of toolpaths you can do here. So as long as that's one target solid, I can drill the whole thing. I just did one drill all the way through, so I did 5 at a time like that. I turn the outside to bring it to size. Let me see if I can get that profile view there. So basically the same sort of thing I would have done with 1, I'm doing it to all 5. And then you can do things like individual toolpaths. For instance, this front part, I'm just going to bring that to size, and then these other ones will have to kind of grind this later or have some sort of secondary operation if the part is big enough. Whatever individual part file you're working with, the idea here is you've got multiple parts rather than just doing one split-second cycle time. You've got multiple that you can group together. And if I do have something like this individual one, all I have to do is just keep doing a copy and paste if I want to keep facing or turning that front face. And then the back side can be done at the same time as when I'm doing the part off. And it's actually kind of, I don't know, maybe Kevin can comment, but I don't know if the part off is unique in this sense that you can actually choose multiple chains in a turning operation. I don't know if you could do that with any other toolpath.
I don't know, I haven't tried it with turning.
Neither have I, but it seems to work with the part off. Let me show you the chains that I chose. It's actually the back side of each one of these. So essentially the toolpath is going to look like it does here. It's going to just be a part off, part off, part off, part off, part off, all in one toolpath. So you just choose as many chains as you like, and then you just get one toolpath to just party all these off. And in the part off operation, another thing that probably doesn't come up that often is the fact that you could actually add a chamfer or a fillet on either side of the part before you actually do the part off. So we take a look at that real quick here in HostCAD. Basically, the tool comes over, gets a little bit of clearance, does the chamfer on that side, and then part off. And now that thing is gone. But before it left, it had chamfers on either side. Now, the reason we have to kind of do it like this is at this time, there is no transform command for a turning operation. If there was, then this would be very simple. I could just program everything for the first part and then just do a transform. But in turning, we don't have transform yet. So
now, before we get too much further on, I just kind of thought of this as we're going here, Mark, but if this is something that you guys are doing on a common basis, what you guys can do is we can just do the one part. So like Mark was showing, you know, that last operation, except for just doing the part off. So he faced the front, or sorry, he did the OD turn, faced the front, and then did a part off, chamfering both sides. What the post guys can do for you is go ahead and open up that part off operation, Mark, and go to miscellaneous parameters. In here, we could actually put a extra parameter in here, or your post guys could put an extra parameter in here and saying that we would like to do that exact same G code 4 times or 5 times, however many times you want to go through there as well. This is an option that is post-processor driven, so you would have to request just to add that into your post, but that is something that can be done as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of stuff, not just this, but a lot of stuff in SolidCAM that there's not an option currently available inside the software in the toolpath manager, but on the post side, there's a lot of stuff that can be done. I mean, it is still just simple code. There's cycles you can add. Like I have heard in the past that, not maybe with specific like application like this, but if you're looking to repeat something, then make it a subprogram. And then you can have a counter that asks you how many times you'd like to repeat that program. And then there's maybe a shift every time or something. So there might not be a transform command in the software, but there isn't something saying that you can't just do some sort of transform shifting kind of application in the post.
Exactly.
So really simple application here. It's just the idea that if you're doing production parts and the individual part is just split second, maybe just group them together. However far you can stick this thing out, you could probably do 10 at a time with something like this. It's just that idea. Multiple parts from a single stock. And really the thing that ties this all together, you probably could figure out how to do all this on your own, is just the idea that it needs to be seen as a single target. So this simple solid in the middle here is really just, if we open this individually, is just a cylinder, just a tube that just kind of has the same or lesser ID diameter, inner diameter of the part, and then something that just goes into the part so that when it interferes, it looks like it's not even there. It doesn't interfere with my toolpath. Okay, so another thing that has come up, it was actually something that was asked in our Facebook page, on the SolidCAM Programmers Facebook page. And that is, let me just open it here, is the idea of using plunge pattern. So anytime you have a really deep pocket or really strong material, just the idea that instead of just using regular pocketing toolpath, you need to do something with the plunge pattern because it's a stronger material or it's too deep. You want to use a series of drill toolpaths. So with that, let's get to...
Well, Mark's pulling that up. For those guys that may be a little bit newer to machining, even in, you know, if we go to aluminum or any kind of material out there, we can always drill much faster and remove way more material than we can using an end mill. So just kind of keep that in mind, and that's why they developed this plunge pattern right here, because we can always drill out that material much faster than we can use for an end mill.
Absolutely, yeah. For whatever the application is, this actually exists in both pocketing and profile. I'm showing it here using pocket, and let me just show you what chain I'm using. The chain is actually just this weird shape. And I use this weird shape just to highlight the fact that regardless of a nice shape like a rectangle or a circle, even this weird shape, we can use the plunge pattern. Let's get into that toolpath and let's take a look. So you set it up the same way you normally would. You choose that chain, you choose your tool. In this case, I chose a drill. You choose your levels. In this case, I'm doing the full depth of the 3 inches. And then in technology, it's actually the technology section here. So instead of hatch or contour, I chose plunge pattern. The second tab shows me the parameters of that technology. In this case, it's just my drill cycle. If there is, just similar to the drilling toolpath, if I choose a cycle that requires additional information, it opens up the data tab, and then I can plug in my information. And then the hatch, the type is really just relating to the flow of the toolpath. So if I set it to follow stock, it would actually do some sort of offset pattern. If I do hatch, we get something like this.
And while you're bringing that up, so if you go back to the contour, this is if you guys were having like a big slug that you guys wanted to drop a slug out. That's where that one comes in handy. If you had a, like big diameter, like we'll take it simple, just a big circle. I'm holding up my hand so you guys can see it. So you guys should all see my hands right now, right? So you got a big circle, and you can actually do a plunge pattern going all the way around the perimeter of that. And at that last one, you can set it up so it will plunge out, and then that slug will drop through for you. And then you can remove that slug out of there. And it's kind of what that contour one is set up for.
Exactly. So we got hatch, we have the overlap. So I actually have an overlap of 10% of the tool diameter. So when we take a look at that actual tool path, let's get into Solid Verify. We can really see it that way. Let me just get that shaded there, slow this down, and it's a series of drilled tool paths forming that shape.
And Mark can set up the distance apart, how much he wants it to overlap, how much he wants us to step over. All that is all decided in that plunge pattern as well.
Okay. And that exists, like I said, in both profile and pocket. So you have the ability to do this sort of thing either just on the perimeter, like Kevin said, so you get a slug, or you get this idea here where you can actually remove all the material. So that is number 2 on the list. And then the last is, I don't know if I really have a part to really show this, but there was a question of what this thing here does. Let me just open up the operation manager. Anything relating to parallel calculate. You have save, parallel calculate, exit, save, parallel calculate, and copy. Now, obviously, the save is saving the file, or sorry, saving the toolpath to operation manager, and exit and copy is similar to what you see over here. It just copies the toolpath, or it saves it and exits. But what is parallel calculate? Well, parallel calculate is, let's see if I can get to, now I know I can probably describe it sort of how it works, but I'm going to push it over to Kevin because Kevin actually has done this on site with a customer. So Kevin, what is parallel calculate?
So the parallel calculate is if you guys are getting a toolpath, let's take, for instance, Mark's HSM part that we were looking at the other day. You notice when he did a calculation on that, or save and calculate, excuse me, sorry guys, I just ate lunch, so it's coming back up. It was automatic. It was taking a little bit of time to do that save and calculate. So what you guys can do is you can do the save and calculate in parallel, and what it will do is it will calculate behind the scenes while you can still keep working. So Mark, if you go ahead and open up that HSM one for me real quick. And we have 2 different options that you guys can utilize this in there. And now this is kind of set up for parts that take a little bit of time to calculate. So now if Mark goes and save and calculates this, he is, go ahead and do it, Mark. He is basically locked out. He can't do anything as he's working now. He can't add operations. He cannot do anything else except just wait for that. Now, if he does the save and calculate parallel, what it does is it will calculate behind the scenes, and you can still keep continuing working. But they also have an option in there to actually go through, and you can have this set up on a powerhouse computer. So right now, you can see it's got the little lock symbol by it, and Mark can keep continuing working as it's going through. But now you can also set it up in your settings to, and I'm going to pick on Jake here. Jake works at a great company that is really big in computers. What they can do is they can have a horsepower computer or a horsepower server, and they can actually run it so all the operations are being calculated on that horsepower computer, which is in a different room, different facility, whatever that you guys would like. So the calculations would be much faster. So I could be running a tablet, but using that save and calculate in parallel and going to my powerhouse server that's doing all the work for me. all the grinding work, you could say, or all the crunching of the numbers. So it's a good option. The only thing that we have that I'm not a huge fan of is when you guys do this, you do have to have SolidCAM loaded on that other computer as well. So even though that you're not using any of that computer except for the processing power of it, you will still have to have SolidCAM loaded on there to utilize that processing power. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, so Jake's asking the question that I was trying to find. I always forget where it is. So how do we assign that parallel computer?
So go ahead and open up your settings. The local, it might be in there. It might be in the global. I can't remember.
I thought it was global, but let's check the part level settings.
Under calculation, yep, don't see it in there.
Okay, so let's exit out of the part. So anytime you have to do a global change, you want to make sure you close out of your part file, and then you can go to your global settings. We'll let that compress. Now, what I do remember about this assignment is it is simply just a location on your network. So it has to be a network-related computer. You're just basically just going to point to it using this setting once we find it.
And you can have it set up to, like if you're running a network just from between two computers. So it doesn't have to be this big extravagant computer networking system or anything like that. Okay, toolpath. I've seen that you had it up there.
I don't think that's it.
You may just have to go through these real quick, and I kind of forgot where it was.
Okay, so it's not there. There. G-code.
No.
G-code simulation. Nope.
No. Maybe it's. There's a checkbox that you can disable it so it always runs on your local computer, but I can't remember where. Well, tomorrow we'll find that out for you guys.
Yeah, we'll find it. Actually, you know what? I might even have it somewhere else on screen. But while I'm looking for that, let's see what the other questions all are about here. So speaking of calculation, is there a way to calculate all that need calculating? Calculate almost all the way. Yes. So if I understand your question correctly, let's go to that turning operation. That's the best one that describes it. And that's not it. Okay. That's always good. Okay, I called this washer. Let's grab that one. There it is. Okay. So this is really apparent in a turning operation because all the operations that come after it are dependent on the updated stock. So if I change this in any way, let's say I maybe just go a little deeper. A really small change, really inconsequential change, but as soon as I do a save to that, they all want to be recalculated. So if I understand your question, rather than going back out of here and individually calculating them, what I can do is instead of just save and calculate, I can click on save and calculate related operations. So anything that needs to be updated because of this change will now be updated as well. So all the toolpaths will automatically be recalculated because I clicked on save and calculate related operations instead of just the one.
Yeah, and this is kind of a great point. Brian, thank you for mentioning that. With that, that was added, I think, in 2017 when we started doing all about the updated stock. Now, I wish they would go in there and remove the save and calculate button because that should be your new go-to button is the save and calculate in parallel operations because a lot of times like especially when you guys are using iMachining, or like Mark is showing us here on turning. No matter what he does, just changing a drill bit size to just as simple as a simple depth. Since everything is all based off of updated stock, all those other ones are going to need to be calculated. So using, excuse me, that saving calculated with other operations there should be your new go-to button. So you won't ever have to run across exiting out of there and then going in there and calculating all the rest of them. So. And then, Jake, you're asking about that parallel calculation. So yes, that's what I was kind of getting at. Is Jake's asking if that would take up a seat of SolidCAM to run that muscle computer. And yes, that's the SolidCAM would have to be installed on there, and then it would pull down a seat of what you're trying to calculate there. Did you see the one from Charles?
Yes. So to adjust the start point, good example of that is let's go back to that banana shaped guy there. That was plunge parts. So simple example of that is if let's say you had a pre-drilled hole. If the drilled hole was part of a drilling operation that was just before the pocketing toolpath, then in certain toolpaths, you actually have the ability to select that as your start point. And I don't know what's wrong with my system today, why it keeps opening other people's parts, but this is a nice little crazy little thing here. And it's a large part, so it might take a while to open. So there is a way to choose a pre-drilled hole as your pilot hole, especially in things like iMachining, because in iMachining, it's looking to avoid using the helical entry. So if you add a stock that looks like it has a pilot hole, maybe just a huge hole is missing already, or if you had a pre-drilled hole and it's large enough to avoid the helical entry, then you can include that in your 2D iMachining, or your 3D iMachining is going to recognize it as well. But specifically with the pocketing style toolpath, you can choose that drill operation as the start point, as the pre-drilled hole. If you are using just stock, let's say you have a sketch that's set to open to represent the hole, or you actually are just telling it to start down a specific hole. There's a way to do that as well. Once we open up this part, there it is. Okay, and let me just go into part. We'll do a sketch on the top face, and we've got 6 minutes left, so let's make sure we pull this off. So I'd like to start right there. Okay, let's go in there. Let's set up a new pocketing toolpath. And I'll just reselect the chain so I can differentiate them. So we'll do constant Z. There it is. Okay, and then tool, I'm just going to add a quick tool. So we'll default it to the 1/4 inch. Good enough. Okay, and then levels, bottom of target. So technology, you can do your contour, your hatch, and whatnot. It's more about the link section, and either we can get it to do the helical down that center point there, or we can do just simply vertical. And I guess we can set that point there. So my start point is that point.
And then
anything else I should add, Kevin, or is that
another way to doing it too is if you guys want to drill it out. So if Mark is looking to start drilling into that operation, we can add a drill operation in there, and then he can identify that as a open pocket, and then it would approach right through it that way as well. So.
So we'll use the drill that's already there. Again, we'll go to the bottom of target, set that up as it is, drill. Okay, so now we have a drilling toolpath that came before that pocket. Let's go in there. And in this case,
even if go to points and hit that checkbox. There you go.
There it is. Okay, so they put it there now. In 2D machining, it actually is its own tab, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, but in here, you can do it like that. So save and calculate, and now we move it to that other point. So now it pre-drills down that hole.
And Mark, go ahead and just draw right where that point is. Draw just a circle that's a 1/2 inch.
Okay.
And you don't even have to go in there. Just right-click, do sketch.
Oh, okay. I usually like to put it in the part, but yeah, that's good. All right, so let's do that. Go over there. And you said 1/2 inch?
Yep.
Okay. So 1/2 inch hole.
Now let's go ahead and open up that drilling. Now when Mark goes and grabs his geometry now, what he'll do is he'll chain that circle and he will chain the outside contour and he'll mark that circle as open. So it's letting the software know that that material has already been removed out of there, and that usually is where it will want to start.
So I'll just take the pre-drill off so it looks for that hole for us.
And there you go. We're starting right down in there. And even if Mark put it to ramping to none, it would still start right in that circle geometry. So that's another way of telling it to use a start point. That's I think that's what you're looking for, Charles. Yep. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
And then Brian is looking for the save and calculate in parallel, or the save and calculate. Brian, I guess, are you saying like if we had a list of 15 operations and only 5 of them needed to be calculated? Hopefully Brian's still with us here. Okay, so what you can do is hit the calculate all button at the top, or right there, excuse me. And it will tell you that there's going to be, all right, go ahead and click it, Mark. So it says 3 operations have already been calculated. Calculate again. If you hit no, it will skip those operations that are already calculated and go right to the ones that are uncalculated. And Mark can achieve this by doing the same, by going up to the very top on your ribbon and clicking the calculate all button right there, so it's a little bit easier to get to. And so that will go through and calculate just the ones that are out of sync. So, yep. Great questions, guys. Love seeing all these questions in here. Jake, you got to have one more for us, because you're my new guy I get to pick on during the SolidCAM Live. But all right, I don't see any other questions in here. So what we'll do, how do you keep plunging from breaking the drill? So I guess I'm not sure what you mean by that, Brian. How do you keep plunging?
Maybe too much of an overlap? Like if it's overlapping with a previously done hole or something?
Or it could be too much of an overlap and the drill's wanting to wander. Yeah, so what you can do is you can switch over your overlap, so your rough and your finish right here, to be different patterns. So instead of doing like a 10% overlap, you can put a 0 overlap, so your drill would not be breaking through. Go ahead, yeah.
So I find a lot of times in SolidCAM, if it says it has to be above 0, you can put like a really incrementally small amount, and then what happens is you get something like this. Let's take a look at that plunge pattern now.
Yeah, we're still getting a lot of overlap.
I think it's because of finishing. That's why.
Yeah,
For
let's
whatever
turn off
reason,
the
it thinks
finishing.
it's the, yeah, let's take that off. Actually, let's continue with host CAD, but we'll just do the 2D. That should show us the circles.
Yeah, we're getting tons of overlap there. Yeah, Jake, I think it has to be a positive. I don't think we can do a negative overlap. Let's go ahead and hop out of here, Mark. Let's go to the technology. Okay, we don't have any wall finish turned on, so that should be fine. All right, let's go back to the plunge. And what happens when we click on the feeds? Is that just bringing up our feed chart? Okay.
Yeah.
See, this one's more of an overlap from what I can see by the wireframe here. Maybe let's play that one through.
Oh, okay. So that one has that incremental amount. There it is.
So I think that's the one that you would want to use, Brian. So we're not, we're drilling pretty much fresh holes each time. And this is kind of almost nesting in a way. It's trying to fit as many of those drill bit holes into that pocket geometry. Mark, did it alarm out when it gave you when we put a 0 in there?
It did. Let's go back in there. Let's make that 0. Let's make this guy to 0 as well. Save and calculate. And rough overlap should be positive and not be greater than 100.
Yeah.
So you can't overlap 100%, but you can't do 0 either.
So just by putting that 0.0001 in there, that will get you what you're looking for. Well, thanks for the questions, Jake. Love them.
Now, keep in mind, you can always send me, we're near the end of the session, so I'm going to do the closer, but keep in mind that you can always send us your questions either to Kevin's email, which you get when you go to the KevCam YouTube channel, or when you're in KevCam, he gives you the email as well. So you probably already have that, but in case you don't have mine, I'm going to put it in the GoToWebinar chat section, and you can send us your questions or any comments you have, and we'll cover it in these daily sessions. You can also use this email to contact me directly if you'd like to get some one-on-one training, because this is basically a half-hour version of the one-on-one training that we provide as just a regular service. So contact your local salesperson if you don't already have training hours, and if you do, you can use this email to contact me directly. We can schedule something, get you on the training calendar, and we use the same format. We use GoToWebinar, GoToMeeting, and it's actually live, so you can ask your questions over the phone, or if you have a headset on your computer, mic and speakers. This is becoming a little more common now because of obviously what's going on in the world. A lot of people are training from home, or if they're at the office, they have maybe a little bit of downtime, unfortunately. Maybe they can do some training as well. So that's basically what we do. We provide the online training, either with myself, Kevin, Greg, some of the other people you've actually probably heard on the YouTube channel. We're all the trainers. We all do the online training. So if you're interested, just give us a call, send us an email. We do this every day at 2 p.m. Eastern time, just like we did today, up until May 1st. And if you guys like it, let us know too, and maybe we'll continue it. I don't know. But as of today, I think we've got everything we were planning on covering today. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 2. Stay safe, and hopefully your families are safe as well. And we'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.